meeting to order. Today is May 5th, 2025, and the time is 4:30. Also, could we take roll call?
Vice Chair Kamra,
Here.
Member Delgavio, Member Middleman, Member Sullivan,
Here.
and Chair Lindsay is noted absent.
Are there in the board, are there any calls for changes to the agenda from staff or?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay. At this point, the public is invited to address the board on matters that are not on the agenda. So anything that isn't, we're not going to discuss tonight on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public online or in the audience that would like to address the board?
There are no attendees online.
Okay, we can move right on. The consent agenda. Do we have a consent agenda?
Yes, it's just the minutes from April 7th, 2025.
Anyone make a motion to?
Move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second motion.
Vice Chair Kamra,
Yes.
Member Delgavio, Member Middleman,
Yes.
Member Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the public hearing. Tonight's agenda item is 75 Roberta Way. And what we'd like to do is invite Kiego, the staff, to give us a report.
Hello and thank you. I'll be introducing the project at 75 Roberta Drive for ASRB Conceptual Design Review. For this conceptual design review project, the applicant is proposing to demolish an existing single-family residence, pool, and accessory structures, and to construct a new one-story single-family residence with a basement, 2 detached ADUs, a pool, and vehicle gates along with associated site improvements. And there are no desk items at this time. So to give you a bit of a background on the property size is approximately 3.049 acres and is in the rural residential RR zoning district. The overall site is relatively flat with the exception of the eastern edge, which slopes upwards towards Robles Drive. And the project site is visible from Roberta Drive at the front property line, as well as from Robles Drive at the rear property line, and from adjacent properties. And the site is heavily screened on all sides by existing trees and shrubs. So the applicant has also provided a demolition site plan. So this is the overall site plan, which shows the details and extent of the conceptual design project. So the proposed main residence would be relatively in the same location as what is existing. And the 2 ADUs notated as West ADU and East ADU are called out on the plans. And the plans also show a pool in between the 2 ADUs as well as a generator enclosure on the rear side. So the applicant has also provided a proposed landscape plan, which shows the extent of the landscaping on the site, as well as the proposed screening. And so these next few slides are the elevations. So for the residents, the project plans, as you can see in the elevations, call out proposed basements, and the basement grading quantities will exceed the maximum basement grading permitted for the site per Woodside Municipal Code section 151.22C table 1. The project site shall not exceed 2,666.67 cubic yards for basement grading. And so the proposed basement grading, as shown on the project plans sheet C 1.0, is 4,105 cubic yards, and also does not specify the quantities of the basement light/egress wells. The project includes large mechanical rooms and storage rooms in all proposed basements, which could be minimized to reduce the amount of basement grading. And no exceptions can be permitted for the maximum permitted basement grading. Therefore, the applicant will need to reduce the size and/or depth of all proposed spaces and update the grading calculations to meet the Woodside Municipal Code requirements. And so this is the elevations with the basements, starting with the front. This is the elevation for the rear. The elevations for the sides is from looking at the east, and elevations looking at the west. The applicant has also provided elevation plans for the west ADU, as well as for the east ADU. And there are two proposed entry gates at both driveways. The gate at the driveway on the northwestern side would be 16 feet wide and consists of compact vertical and horizontal steel framing. The entry gate for the other driveway at the southwestern side would also be 16 feet wide and is proposed with horizontal steel framing. The wood fence is called out as a replacement for the existing fencing along the front of the property. Also, there are stone retaining walls proposed near the front side of the main residence and additional walls at the pool and lawn. The applicant shall provide the fence calculations in relation to breaks and openness and ensure that the gate allows for more than 40% in open design. The entry gates would likely need to be relocated at formal design review, as the setbacks would not comply with the adjusted setbacks taken from the interior of the easements on the project site. So looking back at the site plan, what's shown in red is the proposed locations of the replacement fencing, as well as for the retaining wall, and for the service gate, and for the main entry gate. And so the plans depict enclosures for the pool, for the generators, but no details or elevations for the enclosures are provided at this time and will need to be provided at formal design review. And this is the digital material samples for the project, including slate roofing, as well as wood cladding, stone cladding and pavers, as well as metal chimney caps and gutters. Lastly, the applicant has provided some renderings of the project site, including the main residence from various perspectives, as well as renderings of the ADUs for the west and for the east. And so that concludes my presentation. Story poles were installed at the site at least 10 days before the hearing tonight. Staff is happy to answer any questions, and the applicants are also here in attendance. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to ask the board if they have any questions.
One, I noticed that solar isn't part of this plan. If I'm wrong, is solar required at this point in California for construction?
So at the conceptual design review, solar is not required to be shown, and it's not necessarily even shown at formal design review. There is a building code requirement for solar. And given that with laws related to solar in the state, they can't be viewed or denied for aesthetic reasons. And so it's only health and safety, and therefore we don't necessarily see them very often.
Just wanted to ask for the applicants.
They will need, if they haven't already, they will definitely need to by the building permit stage to work out whatever's required by building code.
Other question. With regards to height, is it near a transit corridor? Is it within half a mile of transit corridor?
That's not something we've looked at. I don't think there's any buses on Mountain Home Road.
No, it's within half a mile, so 84 also.
If that's within half a mile, I'm not sure. We haven't looked at it.
Now, at if I heard you correctly, the basement is twice the size.
Yeah,
So is that something that they would?
With,
address at
with formal design review, they're going to need to reduce their basement size. It doesn't have much effect on the aesthetics of what people see, so
Right.
we felt it was something they could address at the next stage.
Reminded me of a question I had about that. Part of that basement was a JADU with that discount rating, or it's grading?
No, the JDUs don't change on, any grading that's allowed. They even count towards square footage of houses. So even if it's an ADU, maybe some square footage doesn't get counted, but the grading is still the same. Yeah, and the code is very clear, no exceptions can be made to the maximum basement grading.
And one last question. You mentioned the gate was 16 feet wide. Is that within code?
It's typical. I believe the fire district requires it to be at least 12 feet wide in the open position. So we generally see gates between about 12 to 16 feet wide.
We have a little bit of clarification on the louvered roof areas on the two ADUs.
That's something that we'll need more clarification on at the formal design review stage. They need to be at least 50% open to not be considered a solid roof, and they can't be closable. Cannot, because if they're closed, they wouldn't be 50% open. So we'll get some more details on that with the formal design reviews.
Censored or not, we don't know that at this point. Rain makes them close.
Yeah, they shouldn't be able to close at all. They should be in a fixed position.
That's only a problem on the west.
That's only if there's an issue with setbacks or floor area. So when you get beyond 8 feet from a building wall of a solid roof, that starts to count towards floor area. So that'd be one thing to look at. And then also we need to, it's interesting because it kind of, the ADU with the larger overhang it's within the basic setback, which is allowed for ADUs, but it has this large overhang extension that kind of goes into the property, not into the setback further. So that's something we're going to look at a little bit closer based on their details of the roof design.
One other question. It looks like they're going to be taking down 3 pretty serious oak trees. How is that? Is that addressed at formal review or what?
I think some more details. I think it'd be best for the applicant to actually speak to that because the plans were a little bit difficult to identify where all of those trees were being removed. They're mostly in the building footprint. There are some maple trees that are being relocated, but the applicant could probably best address that.
East and west ADUs.
That's
a problem.
it's something that we could look at. Yep.
Is any other questions that the board might have for staff?
Just that seems that will verify the inaccurate point of measurement for the square footage in the end. You'll get around.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's, we've looked at the floor area calculations, done a pretty good job. There might be some areas that need to be tweaked a little bit, which could lead to maybe some minor changes, but nothing significant.
At this point, we would like to invite the applicant to make a presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Just press the red.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ross Padlock. I'm the architect from Kligerman Architecture and Design. I have here with us Christopher Olstein, the senior associate in charge of our project, as well as Eric Blazin and Nate Dunham, our landscape architects, and Jim Toby from Leon Braze, our civil engineers. Just to answer a few of your questions that came up regarding the project, particularly on the louvers, those will be more than 50% open and they will be fixed. They will not be operable louvers. So they'll be more like a pergola than any sort of controllable sunscreen. And I understand, we understand the issue with the basement. It was a misunderstanding on our part, and we're working with the design team to resolve that to bring the total excavation into compliance. Another note about the FAR calculations, I think the way the chart was labeled may have been a little misleading because it referenced the finished floor elevation and the plate height, but all of the calculations were taken from adjacent grade. So, do you have any questions for us or the design team?
I noticed you had a picture of your materials. Do you have a material?
Yes, we have the physical samples here. Where would you like me to set?
Just here, come on. Which way, you can explain where that's going to go.
This will be wood siding, it's less than yellow cedar, and it has a semi-transparent stain. Also treat it required to go install.
If you, yeah, if you could just use, you can,
Sorry about that.
it's just, we have it on a recording, so, and then people on Zoom.
Thank you. So this is Alaskan yellow cedar. It's treated with a semi-transparent stain. We're also going to treat it with a fire retardant material, install a non-combustible sheathing behind it, and put it on a channel so it's held off the structure of the house, more like a rain screen. This is an auberge limestone, which will be the paving and also the first course of siding up the foundation until it meets the wood siding. And then this is our slate roof, which will be on the whole house. And we'll be tone matching the gutters and the chimney caps in this color. We don't have a sample of the metal here, but it'll be tone on tone to the slate. So,
Those are mahogany.
yes.
The maintenance.
Thank you. I don't know. Any questions for us?
Board. Light wells.
Yes. We had, earlier on, we had discussed those last fall, I think it was in November, with Jillian. We had asked her if those would count, if they would artificially raise the plate height. And she'd asked a senior planning staff, we had sent her the sections, and her response was that they did not believe it would affect the total plate height and the FAR calculation. So if we could have some clarity on that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so a basement light well down to grade does not affect the floor area calculations. We'd want to take a little closer look at just the ones that are depressing the ground a little bit, as opposed to acting as a functioning egress well for the basement. So that side we want to look at a little bit closer with the applicant. But yes, clearly anything that goes down to the basement level for any egress light wells, they do not affect floor area.
I was just kind of curious why there's almost two design languages and doesn't need. On two kind of match to the roofs.
We are trying to keep the ADUs kind of lower and more subservient to the architecture of the house, that the house really stood out as the sculptural object. The curved roof in the back is really the main architectural gesture of the house, and we didn't want the ADUs to be competing with that in any way. So by kind of having flat roofs, keeping their total height low, they kind of settle into the landscape and fade out, and the house is really the focus.
Shallow, I guess the deepest point out, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Accurate.
In the kind of inside corners, it's about 16 feet, so part of that counts towards FAR because it's so far out. But on some of the chords, it gets to about 4 feet off the house. So it kind of creates covered seating areas in the corners. Thank you.
At this point, we would like to open. Public has any
I'm the landscape
Okay.
architect.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, there was some items
Okay,
for you,
sure.
so
Thank you.
thank
Love
you.
to know about the trees.
Thanks. Yeah, hi, I'm Eric Blazin, Blazin Landscape Architecture. So we work together on like siding things, and, you know, I think the biggest move of all was to build the house close to where the existing house was, so we're doing the least amount of disturbance. I saw some of the comments which were helpful on our end. I guess one of the things that I wanted to ask was, you know, there's a page that says the setbacks for the gate are 25 feet from the road, and we've put them at 26 plus. But then there was some note about setbacks, like there's a 50-foot setback. Is our gate location okay where it is? I was confused.
I think the gate locations may be fine. The one thing that we need to be clear on is the setbacks for the property are measured from the easement line, not the property line.
Uh-huh.
So you need to make sure that just that the gates are outside of the easement, which I believe they are. And as long as they're outside the easement and then meet that 25 feet to the driving surface of the road, they're
Okay. Yeah,
The main concern, I think, was really looking at the rear of the property and the generator enclosure. That setback that was depicted on the plans looks like it's being taken from the property line and not the easement line. And so we
okay.
want to make sure that it's close. We want to make sure that it actually complies with the setback.
Okay, yeah, no, we can definitely take care of that. And we can definitely cut sections and show you that and make sure that it's not in the 35% slope zone as well. And then our drawings that we'll do next will be a lot more detail. They'll meet WELO, there'll be a lot of natives, a lot of low water plants. We're proposing 2 big trees in the back in that oval section. And one of the species we're looking at is a coast live oak, another one's a valley oak, and then another one is a linden tree. So we're looking at 3 different options there. We're looking at 4 ginkgos in the front. And then we'll take the sport court out, but we'll make a turnaround so that somebody could back out. And then the other gate, just a clarification on the utility gate, it's a steel frame, but it's wood horizontals, it's cedar, so more country. And we reduce the size of the lawn. It's a baseball field now, and so that's smaller than it is. And then, you know, we're not really touching anything on the hillside, and we're preserving a lot of the trees. One of the big trees that was shown to be taken out was diseased, and we got a permit and we took it out already. So if you've gone to the site, that tree's already gone. Sad, because it was a big tree, but it was completely defoliated. The other trees that we're proposing to take out, just they're so close to the house. You know, we didn't really have a lot of room to wiggle there. So that's why we're taking those out. But the site has a lot of trees on it, and we're planting some more trees. So I feel you can see the canopy zones on this shows, you know, we have a lot of tree coverage here. So, and then we're relocating some trees too. So,
They were taken out or at the front, kind of opposing corners.
yeah.
That's 2.
That's
one you
2,
said
and then
died.
one in the back by where the pool area was the big one that died. So, and then the other ones weren't too big.
Because there is an issue with the generator, did you consider a power wall in the garage so that you don't have to deal with the issues that might come up with the generator?
We didn't really talk about that because I think that they want to have a lot of power. They want to power their house. So I don't know if power walls would do that. Probably not the whole house. So, but we can move it and we can pull it over. You can see that darker or that lighter green area is a bioretention basin. So all the water comes across. There's actually a pipe that goes underneath there now that we will be redoing and make the drainage better. So working with Jim Toby on that as well.
We started working on the perimeter, on the concealment for the generator yet?
We will when we do our planting plan. We don't want to see it anywhere. So,
I think it's there too. Neighbors hearing it wouldn't be.
yeah, no, we were thinking of, you know, building a structure around it for sure. Actually, I had a question. If you pull the plan over slightly, there's an existing, yeah, right where your hand is, there's an existing vault there where their pool equipment is now. And we thought, well, why not just use that for the spa at the house? But then I got a comment from the staff that was like, well, it's in the setback and you can't use it, but seems kind of a shame it's already there, but
If it's in a vault below grade, it can be in a setback, and that's something we just weren't clear. If you're gonna do a
Oh.
new, you're gonna do new pool equipment with a new pool, it should meet the setback. But completely below grade vaults can be in the setback.
oh, okay, that's perfect. So we would do that for the spa. For the swimming pool, we'll put that in a different location or under the house, so.
I lost my power on Sunday. My daughter got married this weekend. We were having a brunch and the power wall worked.
Oh,
Now, I
good.
don't know how many days it would work, but yeah,
Ye-
it was, so, I don't know. I mean, it's something you might want to take a closer
Yeah,
look. I mean,
for
all you
sure.
need are more panels.
Right.
to
And it's
get it-
quiet and it's
It's in the
clean.
garage,
Yeah, yeah,
it's,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not, causing problems with the neighbors.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for me?
Any questions from the public that might have some questions for the applicants?
I'd like to know how long the project is going to be going on.
Well, we happen to have the contractor here. They can tell you. Van Acker Construction's the contractor, and I know the clients want it to be built as soon as possible. And so I think after this process and we do our building permit drawings and we get going, I know that they'd like to get it built as soon as possible, but I can't really speak on that. 30 months? 30 months. Sure. Here, one second.
Thank you very much. We live across the street in back of the property, and we have 9 acres that are not fenced. We have a split rail fence. So we see lots and lots of wild animals, wild birds, and when you planted all those plants along Robles Drive, you cut off every avenue of any natural habitat, which concerned us very, very much. There is no air circulation. I don't know why the fire department ever approved it. It's very dangerous. I feel that that should be cleared out so that there is circulation, there is encouragement of native habitat in the area, which we have always had. We lived in our house for 32 years. And we loved seeing the animals and the birds. We do not have any gates at our house. It's just an open plan. And we love living that way. There's no need for extensive gates and fences. We just want to encourage wildlife in the area. And I know the town of Woodside is very pro wildlife activity in the area. And I think that's something that you should think about, and the people who own the property should definitely be aware of it, and perhaps are not from this area. I don't know, but they should be aware of Woodside's needs.
Answer that.
And then just to be clear, we should have any comments directed to the board and not between staff, and he can answer the question.
I'll answer the question. So I think for my clients' needs, it was more about there's a lot of different plants that they wanted that the deer would eat. So they didn't want to have deer in their property. That's one. And 2, they wanted privacy. And so that's why that, it's planted like that and fenced like that.
They were spaced in such a way so that animals could walk around, them, coyotes could walk around them with deer. And we never really had much deer infestation. I just feel that it was not addressed.
This is, just to clarify, so the conceptual design review, we don't have all the details. The neighbor is correct that the town of Woodside encourages and has lots of policies and guidelines about wildlife passage. So we'll be looking at the entire fence plan closer at the formal design review to see what wildlife passage opportunities are available.
Other questions or?
Is there anyone online that has any questions?
And again, we're not having the public ask questions of the applicant. The public can make comments. So if there's no
So
more
maybe I
questions
should
for the
just-
applicant, then they can sit down. We can have members of the public provide their comments.
For those online, if you have a comment, please use the raise hand feature. We do have one. It shows us Thalia and Steve.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi, this is Thalia Lubin. And as a former chair of the ASRB and one of the authors of the design guidelines, I would like to reinforce what Sonia Davidow said, that the town does encourage on these projects to maintain open vistas and wildlife passage. And if there is to be solid fencing or planting, at least back in my day, we asked that it be set back away from the road, again, to maintain these open vistas. And the other thing that we used to encourage before a project even came to the ASRB was for the applicant to go and talk to all the surrounding neighbors to get their comments so that there can be a more civilized discussion during the meeting. I'm not sure you want to meet your neighbors who are angry at a meeting. And so we used to encourage that, somebody coming in, being a good neighbor and talking about their ideas. So I would encourage the applicant to consider all of these ideas as they move forward. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Thalia. That was actually one of our next questions we were going to ask about neighborhood outreach.
And just to clarify, it's not required, but definitely encouraged. So staff always encourages it. And also as they move forward to the next stage, we'll continue to encourage that.
Just at this point, has there been any neighborhood outreach? Pardon? No. Okay.
Aside from the Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak on the item? If so, we can either bring the microphone to you or you can come up to the front.
Thank you very much. During the planting of all the evergreen pieces on the back side, the workmen parked all of their trucks on Robles Drive, which made the street even more narrow than it is currently. It was definitely a fire hazard. They also brought lawn chairs with them, which they lounged in when they weren't working, and that was on Robles Drive. It is not acceptable. I would like to encourage them to locate their trucks on Roberta, where the activity is taking place, and make sure that the workmen understand that this is not necessarily an area for lounging.
And we'll make that very clear. All construction staging needs to be on site. So if there's ever construction activity or construction vehicles on the roadway, please contact the town and we'll make sure we get somebody out there.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Press the red. Go down.
Oh, this will be brief. I just want to say as a neighbor, I would really support the idea of neighborhood outreach. This was the notice for today's meeting was the first that I knew of this project. And I think it would be really helpful, especially given the fact that this will be a long and complicated project to, give neighbors as much for, information as possible.
And also, we have a sign-in sheet in the back. If you want to provide your contact information, we'll make sure that you get all correspondence from the town to the applicant.
How many days before the meeting did you receive your mailing?
I don't remember exactly. I think there was, I don't remember exactly.
Mailing gets sent out 10 days prior to the meeting.
I know, and it's been a repeating problem that even though it's mailed 10 days out, people seem to be receiving it days out. So I want to,
It's just a code requirement that we follow.
maybe we need to adjust the code requirement is what I'm getting at.
Likely fewer.
Are there any other questions from the public in the room or online that have any questions about the project? If not, I would like to close the public hearing portion of this meeting and move to board discussion.
I just have two quick questions for staff. Is there a setback from the pipeline easement that's required?
No. No, so things like a trail easement or a pipeline easement, there's no setback. Ingress, egress easements or roadway easements, setbacks are required to be taken from those.
Trails don't count as ingress egress?
No, it's clear, yep.
Then you mentioned that below grade bolts are allowed as setbacks. Is that both existing and new?
Yes, yeah. Definitely, yes. I mean, they're just allowed, so yes.
One, would it just be possible for you to show us on the landscape plan, the outline of where the fence will be installed?
They have an existing fence, and right now they're only, and Kegel will pull it up, they're only showing a new fence in the front. So with the formal design review application, we're gonna want to get more details on what's existing or if they're proposing to make any further changes there.
So there's not a fence in the back at this point?
There is a fence currently. Yeah. So we did a site visit on Kegel and I just to look at the perimeter of the property, and there is an existing fence at the rear, and likely on the sides as well. There is also one in the front that they are replacing. They're showing the split rail fence, and it's a lower fence in the front, and so that without any wire placed on it, that can also help facilitate some wildlife passage.
That's what I was thinking.
I had a previous project where this was an issue. We have them come back to us formally. You want to do that here?
I think, just going through all the comments and figuring out where the board is, and then make a decision of what you'd like to bring back.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think it's a good project. I have no issues with anything. I think possible solution with the question on the roof overhangs and switching the ADUs, but if it can be addressed through other means, I see no reason why other means aren't valid. Even though solar is not required here, I don't know where they're going to put solar if they're doing a slate roof. And I worry that that means more trees later coming out. I would encourage them to use some of that space in the main residence for a JADU. It might be useful later on down the line, and they have the space for it. But yeah, I would like to see this come back to us for formal, so we can look at the fencing.
There we go. Yes. I reviewed your project. I did visit the site and didn't have any particular questions or comments beyond what the staff had already identified in terms of several areas of compliance and some general comments about fencing, gating, and so forth. As long as you do the routine staff follow-up on all that, I think we'll be in good shape and can keep moving forward.
I agree with what you just said. I think the staff has addressed the concerns, and we pretty much have the same. I'd be fine with it being formal to the staff.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful design. I absolutely love the materials. I am concerned that there has not been any neighborhood outreach. That seems to be unusual. I would like to suggest that before formal, that you do reach out to the neighbors and, show them the plans and show them the materials. Also, I think it's something that will come up with formal. It's possible that the fence won't in the back, not necessarily go all the way to the end of the property. I mean, maybe it could, go give like a nice corridor for the wildlife, something like that. But I think that's something that formal could talk to you about. I have no problem as long as it seems like formal's on top of the basement and the fencing and some of the different, items that I have no problem in forwarding this to formal, but with the condition that there is neighborhood outrage.
So what I've heard, basically a consensus that the overall project design is acceptable. The design meets the residential design guidelines as well as the materials being proposed. And that for a formal design review, for the applicant to provide more neighborhood outreach prior to submitting the formal design review application, to try to incorporate any concerns that neighbors may have, and to look at the overall fencing plan and adjust as necessary to provide wildlife passage through the site. Is there anything else?
Just to confirm, if we pass it on to staff, that means it's on a consent agenda for us later.
No, since story poles will be up, it would not come back to the ASRB. It would just be something that would be dealt with at the staff level if no other entitlements were required, which it doesn't seem like they would be at this stage.
Maybe I was suggesting it because we went through that other project very extensively with regards to
It's-
wildlife corridor. So whatever,
You could have a kind of
Generic.
mixed of just bringing back that plan. So they could bring back the fencing landscape plan prior to completing the formal design review process, if you wanted to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Just focus on that issue.
do you have any other concerns outside of that?
The other for me would be the detailed lighting plan that's addressed also. in the
It typically would be, yes. It's up to the board for what recommendation you'd like to bring back some information.
I'd like to make a motion that we, just as a consent, bring back the landscaping, the fencing, plan what the fence is going to look like, maybe where it's going to be placed, maybe if we could allow for a little bit more wildlife corridor there. Otherwise, then pass the rest on to formal review.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I can second that.
Okay.
Vice Chair Kamra,
Yes.
Member Delgado, Member Middleman,
Yes.
Member Sullivan.
Yes.
Great, the item passes. So within the next couple of days, you'll receive a letter outlining what's occurred, and we'll be happy to meet with you for the next steps. And again,
Thank you.
we'll make sure for the Davidels that we keep you on our mailing list. And if you'd like to give us your contact information, we'd be happy to provide those letters to you as well.
Is there at this point a director's report?
No, there's nothing further to note other than I'm sure everyone is aware of the town manager's retirement party this Friday. So it'll be, I think there's over 100 people have RSVP'd. So if you're available, stop by. It begins at 6 o'clock for the general public. I think staff starts a little bit earlier. And then after that, it will be the town manager's last day the following week after that. But as I've noted before, the new town manager, he's already come in to meet with the different departments, so we all know each other. My understanding is that he was at the May Day parade this week. He will be great. Jason Ledbetter is his name, and we'll be happy to work with him. And he seems very excited to get completely immersed in all of the Woodside issues that we have to handle over the next few years.
Yeah.
With that, I would like to call for adjournment at May 5th, 2025 at 5:13. Thank you.